Oh, we're going to talk about Mei, new hero. Been playing her all day and played her on the PTR. I think I've got a pretty good idea on what makes Mei really good. I just got out of a game there. We went 5 melee. It was a full meme fest. I went damage Mei, which is a thing. Damage Mei can be good. But when you are tanking as Mei, it is vital to make sure that you pick the right talents and play the right way. We're going to talk about that here because it's very crucial to understand what Mei's role is. She is not an offlaner. She can be if absolutely forced into it. Her wave clear is abysmal. She is a tank, and she's extremely fun to play. You can get away with a lot. I'm going to talk about some of those ways to do that. With Mei, since this is a new character, the abilities, you're snowblind. It's really OP. This is on a 10-second cooldown. You can blind people for 1.5 seconds. It does minor damage, so it's not very good for wave clear. You don't want to use a lot of your abilities for wave clear, and that's something I want to stress at the beginning of this. Your cooldowns are 10, 14, and 14 seconds. Those are very long cooldowns and very punishing if you use those for wave clear and then there's a fight in the next 5 to 8 seconds. It's bad. Don't use them for wave clear. Just auto attack, be diligent, make sure that you know your cooldowns, know that you're there. These are very long cooldowns. Your trait is the big one. You become encased in ice. You heal for a ton. I'm actually surprised you heal this much. You get a shield as well. The shield is for 1100. The heal is for 35% of your health. You get a huge shield. At level 0, this 1104 is a tremendous shield, and you become unstoppable. So you can do a couple of things with this. You can use this as a pre-cleanse to be able to dodge certain things that might be imminent death. You can cancel this early to get away with some stuff. You can just use this as a raw heal. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. This does come from some experimentation to know when to use this. We're going to talk about the ability to use this quite frequently because this is a 40-second cooldown, but we will be specking into it in most of our builds, and we'll talk about those things. Avalanche and Ice Wall, we'll talk about those when we get to the talents and the heroics. Your combo, in case you are wondering how to combo this, you want to Q. It's not always necessary to Q, but your Q gives your initial 35% slow. Your Blizzard gives a slow, but it starts at 7% and stacks up, thus making it a little more difficult. And then you want to QWE, or you can WE depending on the circumstance. But you want to W before you E pretty much every time. Almost no world where you're going to E first. The Mei's E goes in. He has a knockback radius around it. Full circle. So I want to Q. I want to W the target or 2 targets that I hit. And I want to E past them and knock them in. Sometimes they're going to run towards my team, so I want to E and press E earlier. So if you're a tank player and you know a Nubarak, you can cancel your E the same way. That's your combo. Your QWE, big slow, 35% slow, W on them, so that slow is going to stick. So if this starts at 7%, it stacks up to 35%. It ticks once every quarter second. By the time you get to that 1.5 seconds, they're still going to be slowed for another 35%, making it very easy to have that permanent 35% to make that stun on it. So you want to E past whatever direction you're going to have. It's like playing pool. You need to hit that circle on them to knock them back the opposite direction. That's pretty much the combo. Now let's talk about the talents and how to make this work. At level 1, I really think that there's one talent here. If I am forced to play off lane, I will pick Ice Storm. That's the only time I'm picking this. As tempting as it is, everybody loves to do more damage with their talents. This is not a good tanking one unless I have another tank alongside me. Heat transfer, super good. Basic attacks against stunned, rooted, or slowed heroes deal 33% more damage. So that's an obvious one. I'm going to get some bonus damage. But each time Mei stuns or slows an enemy hero, she heals for 18 health. And remember, your Q is a slow, your W is a stacking slow that's going to tick every quarter second, and your E is a stun, which means that I have multiple, and I mean multiple things that are going to proc this. If I hit more than one person, 18 health sounds awful until I realize that my W is going to tick multiple times onto multiple people, and that's going to be what I'm looking for. So heat transfer means that I can be super tanky in these situations. The only time I think I'd pick heavy pack is if I'm going against a very heavy auto attack team. And I'm talking about like 4 people that all have auto attacks as their primary damage. Maybe they went Greymane and Raynor and Sonya or something like that. Then I'll consider going extra blind duration. That is a pretty significant blind duration when you talk about going from 1.5 to 3 seconds. But this is a pretty substantial increase to then it's doubling it. So that is really good. But heat transfer, if you're tanking, you have to pick this in order to stay alive. You have a lot of buttons to keep yourself alive. Right now, I found very early on, like, this makes you super annoying to deal with, and you can make some pretty big plays. It allows you to use those combos, that QWE combo. By the way, going back to the combo and all that stuff, if you're constantly comboing, you're constantly throwing your Q out, you will have mana issues. So make sure and adjust accordingly. Level 4. When I was on the PTR, I thought this was a terrible talent, Crystallize. In hindsight, I maybe miscalculated it. I do think Slush Ball is okay. This deals increased damage. I'm not speccing into a Q build. That's not the damage build that I found to be very good. And I don't really care about the disabling of structures right now. We've seen a lot of nerfs come into the way the structures are functioning now, so I don't need this as much anymore. Cold Front is actually pretty good. But Crystallize is going to be my #1 talent. I'll talk about that in a second, but I want to address Cold Front. If Mei enters her own Blizzard while icing is active, the cooldown of icing is reduced by 7 seconds and you gain 50 mana. I just told you had mana issues and your combo is to WE somebody. You're not always going to have the luxury of E'ing through so much as you're going to E beside to knock them back into it. It can happen. You can just go in a straight line like an ETC knockback and it's his own power slide into a W combo. But fortunately for you, your W here actually is going to slow and stun them. So this is actually really good. This gives you more mobility. And I think this is really good when I go back to the part where I have mana issues and my cooldown is 14 seconds. This puts my E back on a 7-second cooldown as opposed to 14. And there's a way you can spec into your W later. I think that if you are going to go that play style, then you do want to go in to the W one, which is at 13. So if Mei is in her own Blizzard when it ends, you're going to get cooldown reduction on that. So there is something to be said for going into that style. It means you're very aggro, very busy. I do think that we are going to see that build probably start to rise up as more people get familiar with Mei. But I think that given the big playmaking potential that Mei has, and what she's able to do right now, Crystallize, going back to this, you take your 40-second cooldown, you take it down to 25. I have a self-cleanse every 25 seconds, and I have a 35% heal every 25 seconds. And I have 50 spell armor when I'm in there, which means that shield, now I can get the full duration or almost the full duration out of that. Plus, I get the spell armor 2 seconds after. This is super tanky. It allows me to heal a lot. Remember, you can cancel this. If I couldn't cancel my trait, I'd say this is probably not that great. But the fact that I can cancel this, which means I can use this in all sorts of moments to make things easier for me. I think that Cold Front can be really good for mobility, and it's probably going to be a very common pick later. I think Slush Ball is going to be like bottom the barrel, but Crystallize is really good. Moving on to level 7, all of these are good, and they're all good for different reasons. They're all situational, and they're all very, very good. Now, the very best one in most circumstances is going to be Induced Hibernation. This helps a lot on maps where there's chokes. If this is on Hanamura, probably not that good. If this is on Cursed Hollow where there's chokes, even better. This goes from a low pick rate on Hanamura to a high pick rate on Cursed Hollow. If they are a Tracer, Raynor, Malthael, Nubrak, where they're going to be in 4 different places, this might not do me any good because I'm only going to probably reduce damage of 1 person. But if I'm on choke maps, if I'm on a normal composition, this works out really well. If they have a standard 2 range, 2 melee, and we're not on Hanamura or Alterac Pass, which is pretty rough one, for open maps. Your W is not good on open maps, thus making Mei less of a priority. It's good for getting those combos, but that means you have to hit the combo onto that person to get more value out of the level 7, and that does work in open maps against heavy, like, group teams. But overall, reducing damage dealt by 40% is pretty significant. When Blizzard ends, enemy heroes still within its area gain the effect for an additional 4 seconds, which means that if you comboed them into it, they do 40% reduced damage for potentially 1 to 1.5 seconds that they're trying to run out of it, and that they're also trying to, or they're going to have 40% damage reduction for 4 seconds after. This can be really good in very niche situations. Remember, everything is dynamic, spell power is dynamic, things like that. You can reduce damage. Looking at the other ones, when icing ends, skating away, Mei and all nearby allied heroes gain 20% movement speed and 50 physical armor for 3 seconds. 50 physical armor is a ton, and the fact that it's not charges, it is a raw 50 physical armor. That makes it really good. So if I have somewhat of a dive team and I have a Greymane on my team and maybe an Illidan or a Sonya on my own, I might consider this if they also have auto attackers that are going to be there, or if I'm going against like a Bloodlust comp that has multiple auto attackers that are going to make things tough for me. This also means that I can, instead of using my E offensively, which most of the time you should, I can always E back to my team and give them 50 physical armor and make sure that they survive for 3 seconds to make sure they don't get run over. So this can be good in a niche situation. I think that this is far less common than maybe the value you're going to get. 40% damage reduction versus 50% damage reduction. What I'm saying? Like, I can get 40% damage as long as I hit the enemy players, and that reduces 40 damage. This reduces 50% of the physical damage, but I also give movement speed. Then the one that's the most generic, but also pretty good. On Cursed Hollow, I don't like this because I'm not near globes. You get to remove roots and slows and regenerate 20% of your maximum health over 2 seconds. 2 seconds is not that long, but it's pretty good. So you have a nice heal if I'm on smaller maps or maps where there's going to be a lot of globes. I like this a lot more. And as long as I don't need one of these, then I'll consider going this. Mei, again, going back to the part about open maps, may not be the super hotness in those situations with Induced Hibernation. You might opt to go some of the other ones. I think the number 1 and number 2 picks are going to be between your 1 and 3, with skating away being more of a niche pick, this being more of a map pick or the enemy team comp pick. And this is just a pretty standard one. If I can heal with my D, 25 or 35% of my health, 20% of my health here, I'm pretty good. You're wondering, you cannot activate this while you're in your hibernation in your trait. You cannot activate it. You can't activate it before, but you can activate it after. So consider that when you are picking this talent and your utilization of it. Level 10, I think I've played Avalanche every game. I think this is better because it's a 65-second cooldown. The build time on the wall, I think this is going to help in certain situations. I think there's a lot of experimentation that's going to need to be done between these, but getting a combo of a QWE, stun them in, they're stationary targets, I can now R them back. I can also use this as a disengage tool. A lot of things that you can do with Avalanche. The more heroes that are inside of it, the more I'm going to get the stun. This is an insane playmaking thing. It can go over walls, so if I want to shoot them back, I can shoot them behind my gate. I can shoot them basically anywhere. It is a very narrow path, so getting the combos, getting the slows does make this easier to hit. If you miss, it's heroic that literally does nothing, and it's big sad. Ice Wall, there is going to be a lot of places where this is going to be good. Because it's vector targeting means you have a lot of control over this. And so we'll keep an eye on both of these heroics. Avalanche, I think right now is just the bigger playmaking talent. Level 13, I can't say enough about how well they've done with the talents, how balanced this character is in terms of like getting effectiveness out of each of the abilities. One thing that I really like is while Cryo Freeze is active, Mei's basic ability cooldowns recover 200% faster. You can combo somebody, you can go in, get some autos in, and then you can press D to make sure that you survive. If they crack your trait, then you don't get the full cooldown reduction. But while you're in there, you get 200% faster, which means that I can go in, make a big combo, press D. Remember, it's on a 25-second cooldown with that level 4 talent, and then I can pretty much combo again. It's pretty nutty, but you do have to wait out that weird, you're not in stasis, just in the cryo freeze. So it does help. I also really like the fact that passively your basic attacks slow by 20%, meaning that everybody moving around, you can help peel, you can keep away some of those targets. You are a 4.5 range tank in terms of your auto attack, so it's very generous, very long, right up there with Blaze, in case you were wondering. So you can control people, manipulate them with your slow. As far as the other ones goes, Polar Vortex using an ability causes Mei to deal 24 damage a second to nearby enemies. This is kind of like Burning Rage. Enemy heroes damaged by this effect also have their movement and attack speeds slowed. This is similar to Imposing Presence. So it's kind of baked in on one. So this isn't too bad when you think about what you can do with this to do Burning Rage damage, but also slow their movement speed and attack speed. Pretty crazy. Against dive teams, this could work out really well. I think that could be something you might want to go with. So this is going to be the general, very generic, always going to get value in. This is going to be against maybe I need extra peel. If I can get auto attack speed slow by 20% and I'm reducing damage in some other way at level 7, I'm now not just a tank that's out here to CC and drive people nuts. I'm now CCing them. The one stat that never shows up that everybody just completely forgets about is damage reduction. Leoric's level 13 reduces damage by a significant margin. Diablo has the exact same thing if he goes W build. So there's a lot of heroes that you'll see that you don't realize you're getting the value out of it. This will happen with Mei when you do go into some of these different talents. So getting the attack speed slow baked in can be really good when they are damaged by this. The radius on this, you just got to be near them. So this can be good versus heavy dive teams that are, again, auto attack focused, or those bloodlust comps that are very common. The other one, Flurry, I mentioned this. If you did go into the cooldown reduction at level 7, you don't have to go it here, but standing in Blizzard reduces the cooldown. It increases your attack speed, which means you kind of go in there. You'll get like 1 or 2 extra autos, but it refreshes the cooldown of your Blizzard by 75%. If you're in your own Blizzard when it ends, which it's so far not exactly the most common thing, you would have to QWE and then make sure you move in. Normally, you're trying to get a very max range push, and you're not normally landing in your Blizzard when that happens. So this is more of a point control area where you know you can put Blizzard down and not necessarily have to combo, or your combo is not as empowering. So this is kind of like, whoops, I need that. I ended up just standing here, so I'm going to get my Blizzard back. So I'm going to stand in it, and then I'll get it back, and then I'll use it again. So it's not normally a combo setup style talent. That's making it a little less appealing for me. So I think these two are both really good. This is more of a niche situation. This is kind of like an every game situation. The basic attack slow is already good enough, but getting the basic attack cooldown reduction, or the basic ability cooldown reduction when you are going crystallized, makes this pretty fantastic talent. Now for level 16, these can vary. These again are very different in terms of what we're looking for. Fresh Powder, Snowblind gains an additional charge, and its ranged is increased by 33%. That Zul'jin or Rainer that's sitting back there with 6.5 range now because they're stacked up, or you're playing against a Rainer, boom, here you go. And I've got 2 charges for you. I get 1.5 second blind. I get 3 second blind. If I really needed that, the range isn't necessarily that OP. I can go here. I get 6 seconds of blinds. So there's a lot of things you can do with this talent. It does require you to hit, but it's very generous in terms of the area. Very good against really good auto attack teams. If it's just a Zul'jin, probably not going to go this. Right? I'm going to be looking at some of these other talents. Icing slow effect no longer decays over its duration. So one thing that we're looking at with this, so they take 52 damage and are slowed by 80%. So this slow means I can combo them into it. It also means that I don't necessarily need to combo as much. This gives me the forgiveness factor that I don't need to combo them. But what it does do is if I'm comboing somebody, I'm pressing my QWE combo, my WE combo, I'm hitting them for 80% slow into another slow. So the 80% slow is going to overwhelm that. But I also get 300% more damage. There's a small circle within your somewhat small circle that will show you where that impact radius is. It's beautiful, it's brilliant, and I love it. But it gives you more single target damage to those targets where I'm comboing them, knocking them into a stun, and presenting on a platter the enemy team for my team to hopefully kill off my CC. It's very easy to see where my CC is going. Do that 300% bonus damage. I think earlier I was doing like 400 something damage, like right around the 18 to 20 mark. So there was a lot of damage going in there. So there's so many different things now, but to the one talent that I think is going to be the most consistent, probably the best talent, Acclamation. Each time Mei stuns or slows an enemy hero, the damage she deals The healing she receives is increased by 1%, stacking up to 20 times. While at maximum stacks, Mei also gains 10 armor. And if you go back to the earlier part of what I was talking about, your Blizzard constantly ticking. If I'm hitting multiple people and I'm comboing them, Acclamation makes a lot of sense. And I think this is going to be the most consistent one to be able to get value. If I'm going against a tank and triple ranged, probably not as good. And I'll be going fresh powder to just lob it at those ranged characters. So there's a lot of different things to consider with each of these talents. I think this one is more of the general talent you can always get value out of against double melee, which is pretty common. And then each of the other ones is more circumstantial. Again, it's really hard to assess because a lot of these are based on the enemy team as opposed to your own team. And that's why she's so valuable, because she has such an impact, not just on your team with her combo, but her talents are heavily based to mitigate so much damage from the enemy team, making her very strong. Level 20. I'm not really sure how I feel yet. Flash Freeze. When Mei takes fatal damage, she instantly gains Cryo Freeze. This effect has a 3-minute cooldown, which means that I'll get a shield and I'll heal for 35% of my health. Johanna's sitting here with like indestructible, like, whoa, I just get a shield and I maybe can walk away. Mei's like, nah, look, man, unless they crack my shield, which I might not get the full 35% because they're hitting me. But getting this, it means that I have an extra survival button. Naturally, it just comes automatic. I do like Cascade. While traveling, Avalanche constantly launches a volley of untalented snowblind snowballs. Get the extra damage and you get the cooldown reduction. You don't necessarily need the cooldown reduction, but you go from 65 seconds to 40 seconds. So I don't think that's really that good. So if you watch any of my videos, you know I talk about level 20 heroics. Any level 20 heroic that or upgrade that just reduces cooldown, most fights happen and then boom, you don't have 40 seconds until the next fight. You normally have like a minute and a half until the next fight. And you don't normally get a 40-second cooldown to use twice in a fight. It's just not how it works. So you have like the untalented snowballs, which do a little bit of damage. So that's why the big one in Flash Freeze now become better. So Snowblind is periodically empowered every 15 seconds. The next Snowblind you cast has a 67% increased area, 200% increased damage. Look, having a bigger area slow can be really good. I walk into a fight post level 20. I haven't thrown my Q yet. So bam, this thing is sitting here waiting to be tossed. I Q, giant area, lands onto 3 people. I put my W and my E and I'm like, you know what? I could hit maybe 1 or 2 people earlier. This thing means I got big playmaking potential. Because it's every 15 seconds, your Q is on a 10-second cooldown. Unless you went the extra charges, you'll only have that 1 charge. But your W and your E are on 14 seconds. So this kind of lines up to where every time you're ready to combo, unless you pick some of the other talents or use your D, you'll be able to use those potentially twice in a fight pretty easily to make that happen and make the big play or get the big AoE blind. Flash Freeze is kind of there. This is like a... you're never going to get flamed for picking Flash Freeze. You're never going to get flamed for picking this. So it's kind of okay. And if you did go the Ice Wall, getting the extra armor reduction on this is a massive upgrade. Because when they are there, they take damage and they have their armor reduced by 25 for 5 seconds. You're also considering that you've got the slow. It does decay over time. So hopefully your team follows up on that instantly, or you've got some follow-up CC. If I've got some follow-up CC, that's going to make it easier. But the wall, you can't cancel. You can't do a lot of stuff. So I think right now Avalanche is just better. But Mei right now feels really fun. She's super tanky. You have to go into the mindset that damage is going to come naturally. I've played 2 games today where I have top damage as a solo lane Mei. They're trying not to make her a solo laner. And her wave clear is pretty terrible. So trying to put her as a solo laner, like Tomb, good luck, you know. But if it's on like a 2-lane map, maybe it's okay to pick her there. But you have to wrap your head around the fact that Mei is a tank. She has a killer combo. She has a phenomenal blind. Her QWE combo, if you want to go, or your WE is both acceptable. Your trait is insanely strong. I wouldn't be surprised if they nerfed the shield on this thing because it's pretty wild. But all of her talents are made to blind, slow, combo, reduce damage, slow attack speed, reduce damage. Like all of those things give block charges, get extra blind charges, like all of these things. You have to understand that you are a utility, not necessarily I'm Diablo, I'm coming out, me Diablo, me smash, me press all my buttons and hopefully hit you into a wall. Not ETC where I'm going to slide, hope my team follows up, and then I'm just going to press R, I'm going to W and knock them out of my team's AoE abilities, right? This is very much a utility tank that can combo and reduce damage and take away a lot from the enemy team. So for Mei, wrap your head around that fact and go out there and completely dominate games. Don't go out there and try and top damage. It's not gonna be the primary focus you want as a tank. Your damage will be there. Your CC will be there. Your damage mitigation will be there. And guess what? That should be enough for you to go out there and be a complete monster in these games. So pick Mei. Open maps are going to be her weak spot, but overall, I think she's still going to be okay. You can adapt to some of those situations, and hopefully these talents will kind of get you there. If you're wondering, for a recap, heat transfer, to crystallize, any of these talents will be good situationally. Avalanche, to polar vortex or cooling servos. I think all of these are going to be good. This is probably my last pick. Acclamation is probably going to be there, or black ice if I need more of that combo single target damage. And then going into the big one or flash freeze or even cascade for a little bit of fun. That's Mei right now. Super OP, super strong.